But I think that's the save the cat moment because that's the moment where you realize that Chris Knight is going to help this kid adjust to life at this school.
You know you love the film Real Genius with Val Kilmer. What is the save the cat moment in that film?
I think it's probably okay. So with Real Genius, uh, the premise there's a young genius who enrolls in this sort of like Caltech type school. And he partners up with Chris Knight, who's played by Val Kilmer. And he's young, like this kid is like 14 or 15 years old. You know, he's young. And he's surrounded by all these older students. They're picking on him, whatever. And he places a phone call to his parents, complaining about the school. He's crying, Mom, I don't want to be here. And the call is recorded and broadcast, like I think in the cafeteria. You know, and he's humiliated. This kid is humiliated. And he doesn't know what to do. Val Kilmer says, hey, don't get mad, get even. And he helps him concoct this plan, you know, to get revenge on like the main bully, which is this guy named Kent. It's so funny that this film, everyone at the school is a nerd essentially, but they still have the different factions. You've got your
Sure.
cool kids and you got your bullies or whatever. So the main bully, Kent, they devise this plan to get revenge on him. And they do it by essentially dismantling his car and reassembling it in his dorm room where it's like sitting on this inflatable raft or whatever. It's great. It's great because it works for the world of that film as well. You know, it's so absurd, but it works for the world of that film. You know, Kent, he loves his car and everything. But I think that's the save the cat moment because that's the moment where you realize that Chris Knight is going to help this kid adjust to life at this school. You know, that's the moment I think you really like him because he can come off as a bit insufferable in the beginning. Like when we're first introduced to him, he's actually interviewing for a job and he's wearing alien antenna and bunny slippers. And it was a Halloween costume that I wore one year. Actually, it's fantastic. He just doesn't care. He doesn't care. But when he helps out, you know, the new kid, when he helps the kid get revenge on the bully, that's when you see he does care about something. And I think that's his save the cat moment.
Interesting. So he's always been super smart. He doesn't really have to worry about, he always figures things out.
Exactly.
And so then you see sort of this humanity come out of him, helping this other kid that was being bullied. Interesting.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. When you saw the guy on the corner selling Save the Cat, you buy the book, you read it, how has it impacted your work, even to this day?
Well, as I mentioned, you know, that book, Blake Snyder, what he did is he turned a lot of the elements that I think should be in the script, right? For instance, Dark Knight of the Soul. It's something that I've seen in just about every movie that I've watched, that I've read, and just about every story. I just didn't know what it was called. I just, you know, didn't have anything to call it, but I knew the moment. So the book turned all of these elements, and that helped me realize, oh, that's what's happening here. That's why it's happening here. This is why we should have this. And so I've been a lot more cognizant of, you know, how I'm using these elements, where I'm placing them in my own scripts, in my own writing, making sure just being aware of, you know, me using those elements and, you know, just making sure that they're placed properly in my script. Because you can't have a Dark Night of the Soul at the beginning of, you know, that doesn't work.
And then in Real Genius, what is the Dark Night of the Soul? Is that where the one character calls the parents?
No, I would say the Dark Night of the Soul is when they realize what the professor has done. They learn that their professor is using their work to craft a laser to essentially like assassinate people from space. And they realize, okay, we've solved this issue, and he's taken it, to the government. What can we do? I think that's the Dark Knight of the Soul. Is because, I mean, even Val Kilmer, his character Chris Knight is despondent. He has a mini breakdown, and they kept their solution was to essentially like freeze the laser, and they kept it in the freezer in the break room, and he has a breakdown. He's beating on the refrigerator, and he slumps down like, I can't believe it. He says, I was a fool. But then there's the moment where they realize what they can do in order to sabotage the professor, and that's how they come out of the Dark Night of the Soul.
So how does this professor get them to come up with ideas? He presents this potential laser.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm fuzzy on the details, but he has them working on a laser project. Like they all know it's a laser, and they're trying different methods. Like there was one method I remember that uses a mirror of some sort. But I think if I'm remembering correctly, the problem was that the laser was too hot. Like they couldn't regulate the temperature, and that's where they got the idea to freeze the mechanism that fires the laser. But because, I don't know, because it was so intense or whatever, it was only good for a limited amount of time, maybe like 2 seconds or something like that, Yeah, I'm fuzzy on the science.
I want to see it again. I think I have seen it, but it was a gazillion years ago, and now it'll be part of movie night. I like that. Jay, let's say you were writing a screenplay and you go through it and you say, I'm missing some beats according to Blake Snyder's Save the Cat. What would you do?
I mean, I think it's difficult to miss any of the beats because they're so dependent on each other. For instance, you've got the catalyst, and the catalyst is supposed to be the life-changing event for the protagonist. And then after that is the debate. And the debate is essentially the protagonist deciding on what action they're going to take with regard to the catalyst. And I think because the beats are so dependent on each other, even if you forget about one or two, they're still going to be present in the script. They've got to be. I just think that inherently they're part of the story. You're going to have that dark night of the soul. It just happens in every story, because in every story the protagonist gets defeated. The goal that they're chasing, what they're trying to do, they get thwarted at some point, and they feel low about it. It just happens. So I don't know that you can really leave out a beat or miss a beat. It's there. Even if it's not strong, like, it's there. Perhaps you'll have to go back and think, oh, wait a minute, this is supposed to be, okay, and maybe punch it up. But I think the beats are there. They should be there. Yeah.